Welcome to the RiZN Gen Podcast, where we dive into all things inspiration for raising the next generation to rise. Rise through engaged and empowered parenting in these unique times. We're all about raising them to rise in truth and grace and embracing godly ways. Joining us today is a very special guest, Sharperson, the author of Sharp Leadership, Parenting Principles for Rearing Young People. Carl is not only one of our esteemed panelists for the upcoming Empowered Parents Gathering on September 3rd in the Upstate, but he's also a husband, a parent, leadership coach, veteran, and of course, he loves Jesus. He has a lot to share about intentionally guiding the next generation to rise in our unique and often challenging times. Carl's practical advice will inspire you to have intentional conversations and active participation in rearing a young generation to rise. So let's dive into this episode. Carl, welcome. Just a little recap from yesterday. We ended with this. It starts with us. We're going to sow, but we need to be alive, grow as we sow, constantly be intentional with ourselves, so that we can have eyes to see how we can be intentional with someone else, the rising generation. What are your thoughts?
Amen. I was taking some notes as you were talking. When you talked about when you said what's the difference between the plastic tree and the other tree, I thought you were going to go this way. It's all about the fruit.
Woo! And if you're growing, there is going to be fruit. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, you can do a lot of things, say a lot of things. I know you buy your fruit. In fact, I was talking to this is it's called Christ Trading Call that I get on every morning. It's about 15 men that get on, ages 32 plus or minus 4 years. I'm the oldest one on it, right? And the guy that founded it, I knew him when he was a college student. And I'm on the board of directors. Anyway, one of the topics we were talking about was the fruit. Somebody asked a question about joining an organization. So when you think about all the different things that you say at church, the organizations that you join, there's always highs and lows of those organizations. Mm-hmm. Every organization isn't the same. And it all depends on the people that are in the leadership of the organization, right? Mm-hmm. Some are doing some other stuff that's not good, right? Mm-hmm. So the person was asking me, as a Christian, should I join? I said, the only thing I can tell you is look at the fruit. Mm-hmm. You look at the people that are in the organization and you see their fruit. If that kind of fruit is what you want to be, join the organization. If it's not, don't join it.
That's awesome. That is wise wisdom. Yeah, I love that. And John 15:5 is actually the verse where abide in me and I in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. I am the good vine. My Father's the good vine dresser. He prunes those that are fruitful so that they bear more fruit. It is to my Father's glory that you bear abundant fruit. And so when you said that, it's totally in alignment with what I'm thinking when it comes to us encouraging, starting with the parents. Empowered Parents Gathering is to empower the parents to realize that they need to grow. They need to do some introspection of areas that they can grow, but also what are the areas that they can grow as they sow into the next generation, because I needed that for myself. Presently, I have a prayer room closet, and in my closet, I have this image of, it's a dress, and it says, she is clothed with strength and dignity and laughs without fear of the future. It's Proverbs 31:25 verse. And on the top of this vinyl design on my wall, I put in big letters my name, Marissa. And on top of Marissa, in smaller letters, is Ariella. Because Ariella and I struggle with fear. Hers is more relegated to weather. Like, she hasn't had to deal with a lot of the things that I went through. But my fears are based off of a lot of traumas. But she has the struggle with fear nonetheless, to some degree. But no, needless to say, the reason why I point that out is because I'm in big letters, because I realize that I need to be clothed with strength and dignity and laugh without fear of the future. And I need to sow that into my child as I grow that in myself. It's part of my faith walk with understanding God's love and growing in my identity as his child. So I don't know. I guess the main takeaway for me, and I really would love to read your book on leadership, because I think that will speak more so to the personal development of a parent as the leader, the greatest influence in their child's life. And then the second book, Practicalities, then that will help to give them vision. Like, it will help to bring it to light. These are some of the things that I need to be instilling in my kid. But also, I'm the leader. How is this in me? Am I spending so much time on social media? Am I distracted? Am I allowing my friends to influence me? Am I not having good interpersonal skills? I'm the leader here. So I need to rise and then sow that fruit into the next generation. Because how do you know you're growing? You produce fruit. And what fruit are you growing? Because they're eating it. The next generation is eating our fruit.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly right. I hadn't thought about it that way. I had a little bit, but you made a real good point when you talked about the first book being foundational leadership, making sure that you're okay. And then you take those principles and lead the family. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. The other thing you were talking about, which is in my first book, when I got trained at the Center for Creative Leadership, which is one of the top non-academic leadership institutes in the world, I went there to quote unquote get fixed. I was working for Colgate-Palmolive at the time. My boss was having some issues with me. We agreed to disagree, and my boss's boss sent me to this training. It was a week-long training. It's called the Looking Glass Experience. 21 executives come in, and they run a simulation for a day, a business simulation. They have 3 divisions, 1 president, 3 vice presidents, and each vice president has a division. So you have a facilitator observing each division. So 1 person observing 7 people, and they're running the simulation. But what happens is, however you run your business when at home is the way you run the simulation. That same thing. So the way you impact others, the way others impact you, the way you impact the organization, all that stuff comes out. So you got 1 person taking notes on 7 doing the simulation. So after the simulation is done, then you unpack that stuff, what you learn, how you solve problems, how you unpack that stuff, right? And then before you go home, there's 1 question they ask you. The question is, what is the most important thing that you as a leader need to work on? And guess what people would say 95% of the time? Now, these are high-powered executives, all different parts of the world, all different industries, all different skill sets.
I know you're going to tell me.
Take a guess.
I don't know.
Talk about work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
Work-life balance. They will say things like this. Look, they say, I'm making a lot of money. I'm with my 3rd wife, and she just filed for divorce.
Wow.
There's things like I'm traveling all over the world. I got 2 kids. One's on drugs, and the other one doesn't know me. They said things like, I'm very well respected in the organization, but I'm 60 pounds overweight and just had my 3rd stent put in.
Wow.
That's what high-powered executives were saying. So through that experience and doing that training, I know, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care how much stuff you have, you got issues just like I got issues. I don't know what they are, but I know you got them, and just like I got them, So that's a huge revelation once you figure that out.
Yeah.
Check this out. So here's another thing. I Googled, a friend of mine asked me to do a round table with some pastors in Texas. This was probably like 15 years ago. So I did it. So I'm in this session with 10 pastors talking about them in personal development. Okay? So I said, okay, so I'm talking to these pastors. Okay, so what are the issues? So I Googled pastor burnout. And in pastor burnout, when you Google that, it will give you a list of things as burnout pastors. They say things like a certain percentage of them have had infidelity, certain percentage of them, their kids don't want to be in the church with them. So it's all this negative stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started the session. I said, look, I'm not a pastor. I did some research. And this is what I found about pastors and what pastors do. You know, they take more care of the congregation than they do their family and themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading the list, and guess what they said? Amen, bro. Can I have that list?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an anomaly. It happens more times than none in a lot of arenas.
In a lot of arenas. I totally agree. And on the flyer, it mentions me sharing my journey from educator to RiZN mom. And in essence, I'm going to be talking about that and how my priorities were mixed up. And I think all parents who desire to grow and do better by their kids and help raise their children and don't feel like they are there, their priorities may in some degree not be or where it needs to be, or they don't have vision to help them say the right yeses and the right nos. So I'm in essence going to be talking about that, what I saw as an educator. And then as I tried to feed into that and help and serve that, I realized that I was also neglecting my own home. And so I needed to prioritize my own family because I remember Mother Teresa said it, if you would like to see world peace, go home and love your family. Because the family is the foundation of society. And I know Jamie Pettit, it says and asserts this very same thing. The church needs to come alongside what we do in the family. Yes, we go to church, but I don't think parents, I love what you wrote in your book about how you weren't just having your kids go to church as babysitters and you and your wife just going to get your spiritual fix. No, you're clock in and clock out. But you did that, and then I don't remember if it was the car ride or dinner. You would talk, you'd have conversations. What did you guys glean? And I remember you mentioned that your children had made a competition out of it and how they took copious notes and became even excellent verbally through that exercise. But you were, I don't like to use this analogy, but killing two birds with one stone, enhancing their ability to communicate, to listen effectively, and also to grow spiritually because they were writing and, using those multiple modalities. So it was further ingrained in them. You're so much wisdom within your book. But what I saw from that was you took responsibility as the leader of your home, but you also realized that you couldn't do it alone. You needed to partner with church, but you were still the leader. You needed to partner with schools, but you were still the leader. You even went, you and your wife,
in the schools,
substitute teachers
to
in order
ensure
to
that your children had the best opportunities and the best chances to excel. I love that. I'm sure they are in sports and other things, but you were the one leading. You and your wife, you did not shirk your responsibility as parents, empowered parents. I would say you had great life balance because you and your wife were intentional with investing in your children. Now the question is, a parent who is working third shift, a parent working multiple jobs, a parent who is single and don't have additional support, how do they stay empowered as parents? Empowered to raise their children to rise. One thing I know you've said previously is to capitalize on community.
A ton of retired people that have a lot of skills, and are willing to help. So, and this is the other thing that I tell people in the corporate world as well as my kids and stuff like that. If you are doing something noble, there's a ton of people that will help you. If you want to go to college and you do the work and you hit the books, there are people that will help you. In my first book, I talk about the fact that I was listening to Tony Robbins, and he talks about learning from the best of the best, right? Mm-hmm. And when I worked for Procter & Gamble in corporate headquarters, I made it my business to meet with the best of the best. I was at a mentoring program. The president of the company, John Peppers, at the time, had started a mentoring program with Procter & Gamble employees and managers, right? So I went to the presentation, and he was there. He spoke, but there weren't a whole lot of people hanging around. I used to kind of like the pretty girl syndrome, where you go to a party, everybody thinks the pretty girl has somebody, but the pretty girl really doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. So he was there kind of by himself. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so what can I say, or what can I do to have a conversation with Mr. Peppers? I said, okay, got it. I went up to him and said, Mr. Peppers, my name is Carl Sharperson, and we have a lot in common. He said, really? What is that? I said, well, I like to mentor young men, young people, and you do too. He said, wow, that's interesting. I said, I'd love to sit down with you and have a conversation about that. He said, oh, I'd love to do that. I said, what do I need to do, Mr. Peppers, to make that happen? Call my administrative assistant and tell her that I told you to set up some time. A week later, I'm in the president of Procter & Gamble's office having a 30-minute conversation about mentoring.
Wow.
So the question about, like he said, you're on third shift. Okay, so who can pick them up and who they're going to spend time with?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times,
who is the village? Yeah,
right. It is. There are my pastor met his father for the first time when he was 35 years old. His mother had 4 kids by 4 different fathers, and he was the youngest, and he was a boy. Right. His coach was his father figure. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a neighbor. So you got to figure out what's missing and plug it in. Oh. And it's not easy, but there's a picture of these 2 young men, right? They're about 30 years old, and one is a successful businessman, and the other one is a functioning alcoholic, homeless. Same parents, same alcoholic father. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of different dynamics and variables in that. Continuously being able to learn. And all this stuff is not new. It's all in the Bible.
It is all in the Bible. Yes, it is. We just communicate it with different words, but it is biblical principles. It is the author of wisdom created it, and it's how we grow the best. That back to John 15, abide in my love and abide in my word. Like those are the 2 things he says. And when I think of abide in his love, I think of like being covered by him, by walking in obedience to him. Because sometimes you can abide out of his love. The scripture that says those who abide under the shelter of the Most High, like it talks about all these dangers that would come, but they are covered. Abiding in his love is walking in obedience to what he says is the right way. And abiding in his word is ultimately knowing the truth. And the truth, letting his word be the lamp unto your feet, the light unto your path. Allowing him to be who he needs to be to you, and to reproduce that, to model that for your children. Yes, there are, back to what you're saying, when in 2014, I believe in our previous conversation, I shared about how God gave me the vision for IAMP, intentional active mentors and parents. But I had the mentors there because we need both sometimes, oftentimes. We need the parents, but the parents can't be everything. We need a village. And I believe back in the day, from what I've heard, we would say that there was more of a village mentality of if you got in trouble from all the mothers on the on the street kind of deal. Like there was this, we have your back. We are family. We are here to encourage and to redirect your children. That's what I've heard. I don't know how true that is across the board around the United States. But ultimately, I know for me, I didn't have parents instilling a lot of good in me. They did the best they could with what they had to give, what they were given. Obviously, they made some decisions themselves, but I don't blame them or fault them. I'm past that. Ultimately, I did have some mentors. I did have some people at church. I did have teachers who spoke life to me, who wrote recommendations for college, who took me aside and and just spoke potential. And I had a lot of people in my corner. So I believe it is not just the parents, but the parents also, in the best scenario, need to lead that village, to guide and shepherd their children, to be sure of who they're exposing their kids to. Go ahead.
And it's the parent. A lot of it is self-reflection. So everybody doesn't have everything. So when the parents do inventory and there's some things that they don't have, that they think child needs, then they got to figure out a way to get it through somebody else. Mm-hmm. But again, it starts with relationships.
Yes.
And something, we talk about submitting to authority, and just being able to listen and accept feedback. I got that in my first book.
Mm-hmm.
That's accepting feedback is one of the most important things that you can be. That's the only way you're going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got blind spots.
Yes.
If I'm arguing with my wife or have a disagreement with my wife, there's some things I can't see. I don't care how good coach or leader I am. If I'm in it, I got blind spots.
Yes.
So being able to understand that and just being able to listen, the word talks about be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, and that's a powerful tool, They say something once and think twice.
I love it. We are nearing on an hour. It's been 58 minutes, right? Well, a little over an hour now. I want to be respectful of your time, but oh my goodness, I am encouraged to read your first book. Would you agree that empowerment starts with us taking inventory of ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
Well, that's a great stopping point for this episode. Take some inventory. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And let's gather together at the Empowered Parents Gathering, September 3rd, this coming Sunday, to hear from the panelists, to hear from my story, to be empowered and engaged with the next generation, so we together can raise them to rise.